Hello, everybody. Welcome in. Hope you all having a good Thursday night so far. Feel free to use the chat function to let us know where you're tuning in from. All right, we've got Bainbridge Island. Hi, welcome. Hello from Queen Anne, Los Angeles. Hi, everybody. San Diego, Mount Lake Terrace. I don't even know how to pronounce this one. Eau Claire, Wisconsin. I hope I got that one right. Hello from North Portland, Mount Lake Terrace, Baltimore, SoCal, Northeast Ohio. Wow, folks tuning in from all over. All right. Well, welcome. My name is Meghna Jarati, staff here at Book Larder, a community cookbook shop in Seattle, in the Fremont neighborhood. As you can probably tell, one of the cool things about doing these Zoom events right now is that we are able to welcome folks from all over the country into our store and to our events. So we're excited that that is one upside of having to transition to digital formats. So welcome, everybody. Tonight, we are here to talk to Claudia Lucero about her new book, Instant Pot Cheese. We have several copies here in the store, been flipping through them, and I'm so intrigued and excited to learn more about cheese making technique via Instant Pot. We will be joined in conversation by Kirsten Shockey, who will be interviewing Claudia and also speaking with her about the demonstration she has prepared. If you are interested in buying the book, check out our website at booklarder.com. We do ship nationwide, and we're also available for appointments if you'd like to come in and browse in the store. We are open from 11 to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 11 to 2. So feel free to head over to our website and make an appointment. During the event, feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions. Kirsten will be fielding questions for Claudia throughout the presentation, and also we will leave time for Q&A at the end. So please do ask away. We look forward to hearing your questions. With that, I am going to turn it over to Claudia and Kirsten. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. We're just so excited to hear from both of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Everybody.
Hi, everybody. So
Hi,
glad
Lynn.
you could join us this evening. So yeah, let's welcome Claudia. I get to introduce her. Now, Claudia is a really good friend of mine who I haven't seen in oh so long. So it's really exciting to me to see her in her home, almost like we're visiting, but not quite, just not the same, because she's not going to feed me any good cheese.
Oh, I know.
So
new car full of ferments for me.
Exactly. So I'm going to read the introduction so I don't forget to say anything, but Claudia Lucero's story is kind of cool. It's kind of every crafty entrepreneur's dream, and it starts in a garage. So she started her business, Urban Cheesecraft, on Etsy in 2009 with hopes of just having a little extra cash to pay for student loans and life and play and all that, and ended up spending the next 3 years on weekends and evenings shipping boxes, and then it became a full-time endeavor. And so what's really cool is Claudia's goal has always been around making cheese accessible, which I think is super cool. It can be a super intimidating craft. I know personally because I was a self-taught cheesemaker and made it very hard for myself. So like, I still hear cheese making. I'm like, ah, yeah, that was really
the trauma.
So, yeah. So, but Claudia's taken all that away, and she's just made it so easy with her kits, and then it led somewhere in the process to teaching classes. I don't know if the books or the classes came first, but somewhere in there, she's just really become an amazing teacher. Her books are 1 Hour Cheese and 1 Hour Dairy-Free Cheese, and now Instant Pot Cheese, which I will be totally honest. When I heard Claudia was going to write this book, I was like, oh, yeah, how are you going to do that? But I clearly wasn't thinking outside the bat. And, you know, when I didn't get to go up there while she was really working on this book as much as some of her other books. And it's
Kirsten is in Southern Oregon and I'm in Portland, Oregon, in case people didn't know that.
That's true. I didn't say who I am.
Yes.
Yes, 5 hours away. So we don't get to visit a whole lot. She's the city mouse, I'm the country mouse. So yeah, I mean, it's always fun to visit when Claudia is in the middle of some kind of book project. I was there a lot during Dairy Free.
That's right.
And such tasty things. So I know that these recipes are going to work because that's her superpower, is making these things easy and work. So yeah, then I got to finally read the book. I got to pre-read it. And when I saw it for the first time, I'm like, oh yeah, duh. You know, this is how it works. Suddenly you don't have to put a pot into a giant pot with water to get your temperature up slowly. You don't have to stand over it, waiting for it, and then maybe having it boil over by accident, which is a mess, or scalding the bottom. And the best part is, you know, the pot keeps it warm. And so you don't have to like get all your towels out and just, you know, try to keep your temp. Anyway, so with all that, I'm gonna let, oh, I do wanna say Claudia's kits are still for sale at urbancheesecraft.com or on Etsy, and her book is beautiful and it is available from Booklarder. And yeah, I'll let Claudia tell us a little bit about what she's going to share with us tonight.
Yes, Kirsten and I met while touring for our, was it your first book and my first book? I can't remember, but
way back.
Now we have the same publisher. So once, you know, we can all travel freely, hopefully we'll get to like meet each other in different states again and go out to meals and strange cities and just have a ton of fun. But I haven't been able to go to Southern Oregon to visit her, but you know, Portland because of Powell's, and on the way to Seattle, it's really fun when Kirsten comes through. And I'm honored to say that maybe some photos of rhubarb in your book, Fiery Ferments, was from my garden. Because, you know, you come up for the photo shoots and things like that. So it's kind of fun to have had this history together. So it's really neat to have you be the one here chatting with me today. So Hi, everybody. I see a bunch of people from San Diego. I wonder if half of you are my family. Thanks for coming on. So I'm in my office. I'm completely surrounded by boxes because it's the crazy busy season for cheese kit sales, but I cleaned up this one little area for you so that I can make it my beautiful temporary Zoom kitchen. So I can show you all about Instant Pot cheese. So Kirsten talked a little bit about the benefits and why I would even bother using the Instant Pot. Like, you know, does it actually add something? Does it make something easier than just using a regular stock pot on the stovetop? And that was a question I had for myself as well. But really what encouraged me to, can you hear it fizzing in the background, the Instant Pot, Kirsten? Okay, good. Coming up to pressure. But the Instant Pot is super safe. That's one of the reasons I prefer it over like a stovetop pressure cooker, is that it has so many safety mechanisms built in. Case in point, right before we started, I forgot to put the little trivet because I'll show you the different types of methods I was getting to when I was saying that, you know, like.
And I wanted to point that out is I don't know if you can see, but I love that in each recipe, there is sort of a little diagram of how you're going to put your pot together.
Yeah.
So for those of us that read it and get confused, we have a picture.
Yes. And I'll show you then what that looks like in real life. This is one of the methods, and that's the method that I'm using tonight. And it's a pot and pot high pressure cheese that we're making. There's also cultured, so fermented ones that we're going to use the yogurt button for. And those two things I teetered between of just like, I think it's possible. And I think it actually does make things easier. So once I really dove in and learned about the yogurt function temperatures, because really it has 3 temperatures that you can utilize with the yogurt button. There's a low, I think, yogurt and boil. And first I'll talk about this pot and pot high pressure cheese, because this is what we were talking about here. That cutout, what it shows you is that there's this main inner Instant Pot liner, and then you're gonna need another little insert, and it doesn't have to be, this is a 6-quart and this is a 3-quart Instant Pot insert, and you don't have to get it from Instant Pot, but once I found that it was just like the perfect size, which I'm not even sure they intended, this was kind of the light bulb for cheeses like paneer and queso blanco, ricotta, things that ordinarily, if you put the milk right into the liner of the Instant Pot, is going to give you a burn notice, because this is right next to the heating element. And just like if you were to crank up the heat on the stove trying to make paneer, which goes up to a boil, this is going to completely scorch and stick. And, you know, I had to go through that a couple times to be like, all right, it's not going to be as easy as that. But I remembered that people make cheesecakes and different cakes, all types of quiches and things like that, custards, in the Instant Pot, and they do it with this pot and pot technique. So what I ended up doing is putting the metal trivet, which I'm using in this other pot, but you know, the Instant Pot comes with a little metal rack. You put that in the bottom, kind of like you would do for canning jars. Put a cup of water always. You don't want it to be dry because you'll get that same burn notice. Put this other insert in, and then that's what you put your milk in. And that's going to protect you from that scorching on the bottom. And it allows us to crank the heat up really high, completely walking away and not having to be worried about it and stirring to make sure that there's no scorching like we ordinarily would on the stove. So it is now my preferred method of making these high heat cheeses, because as much as I love paneer and, you know, the fact that you can fry it and have really crusty little edges, getting a lot of milk up to that high temp takes a while, and I don't have time for that. I'm writing books about Instant Pot cheese and 1-hour cheese, so clearly I'm an impatient cheesemaker. So that's the method that we're using. And if you just heard a beep, what happened, let me bring the Instant Pot up, is, carefully bring it up, point it away from myself for a little bit to show you. So the Instant Pot has a lid, and you can toggle this little nozzle back here to between venting and sealing. And so for the high pressure cheeses, it's going to be sealed because we want all that super hot heat to stay in there. And so here is where you push pressure. If you're not familiar with the Instant Pot, there's lots of different buttons, and I'll just kind of highlight the ones that I use for cheese making. And one of the things that was interesting when I first started developing the high heat cheeses is, you know, I was used to heating them on the stove. And like I said, it takes a long time. I mean, if you rush it and you're really, really actively watching, it can be 20-30 minutes, which is not horrible, but to be watching something constantly, not a lot of people do that kind of cooking these days. So I started the testing at like, okay, well, if it takes 20 minutes on the stove, I'll cut it by half and start with 10. Well, the cheese turned tan, and it was, you know, completely overcooked, totally boiling. So it was way overkill. So I kept toggling it down until I got to 0. So this cheese is actually made by clicking 0 minutes of cooking time, which is pretty amazing. Although, do you see, Kirsten?
Yeah.
So yeah, 0 minutes.
But I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So what happens there when it's 0 minutes? It brings it up to heat, and then as soon as it hits zero, it cuts it off.
Yep, exactly. Okay. Whereas if you were going to make like legumes or something that's going to take longer, you'll get up to pressure. That little valve will come up to tell you that it's up to pressure. It'll get quiet, but it'll continue cooking. In this case, it gets up there and then stops. And now all we're doing is depressurizing. So in the book,
I do have to interrupt you again. Like when I read your book,
that's why you're here.
You said like multiple times with exclamation points, don't be impatient and not let it do naturally. Is this because you have milk all over your ceiling?
Yes. Cabinets, ceiling, and I had to do it 2 or 3 times, Kirsten, before I was like, okay, it's not going to work. Because I had to test all these methods that I see online where they say, oh, just get like a wet towel and push it over the steam valve and that will, you know, keep down the steam. Well, this wasn't steam. It was like an eruption of milk. So if I let out this pressure right now, this would be a disaster. It would be everywhere and dangerous. So yeah, you really need to listen to when I say let it naturally depressurize. And in this case, it's 15 minutes. So in 15 minutes, I'm going to get to unveil this. And I'm going to show you all of the ingredients that I've prepared that you're going to get to see me put in so that we get this milk into curds and whey. Really quickly while this is up here, because I don't want to handle it too much right now. There's the yogurt button. And so if you were going to make any of the cultured, like the chèvre or the feta in the book and a bunch of the different like fromage blanc and things like that, the yogurt button is what I utilize for that because it's an overnight process in most cases, unless you do it, you know, in the middle of the day and it takes 8 to 12 hours or something. If you don't have a yogurt button, I do give alternate instructions of more of like what Kirsten was talking about. I don't think I use the blanket or towel technique, but I tend to like put it in your oven with just the light on. That keeps it warm for me. Things like that will help you keep the milk at a warm temperature for a while. So I'll put this back to continue doing its depressurizing. So that's a 6 quart, and I did write the book for a 6 quart because it seems to be kind of the one that most people buy. And you can use the 3 quart. It gets a little bit tricky because, you know, if you already see this size, this is 3 quarts, you're not going to fill it all the way. So you end up needing something pretty small to put it inside of the 3 quart. And I've done it with mason jars, but you know, you get an itty bitty little cheese. So I would say a half-gallon batch is a good size batch for 2 people for maybe even a week. So that's how I designed the recipes. So I'm going to go through now the ingredients of this particular cheese. Now that we've gone through the Instant Pot. Any questions, Kirsten, before I go on?
I do not see any in the chat.
Oh, yeah, even from you.
But, oh, from me? Well,
yeah.
I've always got questions.
Well,
what about if I don't have like a Instant Pot brand Instant Pot? Yeah,
so I didn't test a ton of them. There is a Cuisinart one that I tested. And so what I put in the book was basically if you have a pressure cooker like this that has a yogurt function so that you'll be able to go to a low temperature, you'll be able to make all the cultured cheeses. If yours has like some sort of direct heating function, like a saute that behaves more like a stovetop burner, you'll be able to do a lot of the parts that I ask you to click saute for. And then finally, since they're pressure cookers, they'll have the pressure option. So you should be pretty okay with most of them out there. I just don't know if they all have yogurt buttons, but not even all Instant Pots have them. So you just have to make sure that the one you get or that the one you have has that on
right there. And I think the newer ones, which I don't have one of those, you know, because I was trying to do a lot of culturing for beans and miso and koji and things. And it was really hard, and I'm sure you had to deal with this too, is trying to figure out what those preset temperatures actually are. But I think the newer ones, if you're lucky enough to have one of those, right, you can choose the temperature, which
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I don't have that kind. I have a
yeah,
lot
my
of.
son just got a brand new one. I'm like, oh, that's not fair.
Wow. Ooh, I like that. I love
So,
that.
real quickly, we have a question. What is the ideal size? And it's a 6-quart, correct?
Yep, 6-quart.
And do you buy the insert separately, or do you buy it with the insert, or how does that work?
You get the 6-quart insert whenever you buy your pot, and then you have to buy an additional 3-quart, which runs about $20 on the Instant Pot website, and super worth it because you can do a lot of all different other pot and pot recipes, like I was mentioning, cakes and quiches and things like that. So I think it's totally worth it because you just know it's going to fit. Whereas even though some friends said like, oh, maybe my rice cooker insert might work, that might be perfect. It just, you have to make sure that the lid can close safely and all of that. This way, you know that the 3-quart I've tested for you, and the 6-quart, and $20 if you're going to be doing this a lot, I think is super worth it.
Okay, and another one was, does the 7-quart work with a 3-quart? And I think that probably yes, right?
Yep.
Because it's too big, that would be the problem.
Yes.
You wouldn't close that lid properly.
I haven't.
Somebody also asked, what's the actual temperature in Fahrenheit of the yogurt function? Do you know that?
Yeah, because I was inserting thermometers all the time to check, and it's funny because I had 5 Instant Pots and 2 small ones going all around the clock when I was testing for this recipe, and they were all slightly different, but it was like between 105, 109, and all of them worked. So that's what.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it might be a little bit higher, but I don't know, maybe it's because, at the bottom it's going to be a little bit warmer because that's where the heating element is, and maybe it all evens out. But yeah, that made me a little bit nervous at first, that I would put the thermometer in different pots and I was like, oh, that one's 85, this one's 90, but it's still enough of a range that it was totally fine. Yeah.
That's the thing about microbes. I mean, there is, depending on the microbe, but in this case, lactobacillus is actually pretty flexible. There's some microbes that aren't, but your yogurt is a flexible one.
And thankfully, rennet, the enzymes that we add for other cheeses like the feta and the burrata, the goat cheese and things like that in the book as well, there's also a range for those. So you just, once you know those limitations this way and that way, thankfully you can work within them, as Kirsten knows very well. So yeah.
A little question on the yogurt button, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit, but maybe not fully. My Instant Pot doesn't have a yogurt button, so what is another button that is the best to use?
Not in the pot. They're all going to be way too hot. So you just get, in the book, I'll tell you exactly the temperature. So you just get the milk up to the temperature that you need, seal it up, put it in the stove with just the light on. And then that will keep it warm overnight, unless you have a yogurt maker, and then you'll just put it in there to do the job of the yogurt button that your pot doesn't have. Okay, so let's get this. This recipe is called Herb Lover's Wheels. It's this one, and the cheeses, let's see. Is this mirrored automatically, Kirsten, or does it look like backwards?
It's mirrored right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can read it.
Yeah, so there's the curd, and there's the flavored ones, and it's one of the ones that's on the cover, because there's a couple different things that you can do. You can infuse the milk with the herbs, which is what I did today, and I really love that as kind of a tricky little flavor boost, because you don't see herbs and you don't taste them. They're not in the curd at all, but I've infused the milk with it. So all of the flavor, essential oils, all of that essence is in there. So I had one little lonely sprig of lavender still in the garden. So that's what got to go in the milk today. But you'll see I have sage, I have also mint, I have rosemary. All of these are still in the garden in different in different shapes. Like they're not all in great shape, But The other thing that you can do though, other than infuse the milk, obviously, is just like chop up a bunch of chives or parsley and then mix them right into the curd. And I'll show you where in the process we would do that. But here, before we open the hot milk and put in what we need to put in, let me show you what that's going to be. So we have our lemon juice. It uses a 1/4 cup. So 1 lemon tends to be enough if it's a really nice juicy lemon. So, you know, just make sure you don't have the seeds. So there I have my lemon ready to go. And the reason for the lemon is going to be to coagulate the milk, to acidify it so that it separates into curds in a way. Now we're talking about the yogurt button, and that creates acidity with cultures. So, you know, we would add either some yogurt to the milk or a packet of freeze-dried cultures, however it is you're going to make your yogurt. And then those will multiply and we'll have acid and we'll have acidified milk. We are adding it to this quick one with the lemon juice and buttermilk. So cultured buttermilk, it's already been cultured for us, and we're using it for 2 things. It's acidic action, but also a cultured flavor without having to wait for the cultured flavor. So it's kind of a neat little trick. And I believe that I used 2 cups. Ooh, I heard it unclick. Perfect timing. I, of course, took away my bookmark. So let me go back to it. But I'm pretty sure it's 2 cups buttermilk and yep, 2 cups buttermilk, 1/2 gallon whole milk, and the 1/4 cup lemon juice. So let me put my bookmark back on there. So you saw that's just regular run-of-the-mill grocery store buttermilk, but it does have to be cultured. So no other milk can, unless it's cultured. So like another kefir or even a really tart yogurt, but just like regular milk is not going to add that acidity that we need. And then just regular grocery store milk. In this case, this is Organic Valley, but I've tested pretty much every milk that I can access in Portland, even from Walgreens, from Safeway, just because I have to make sure that my recipes will work for people all over the US and beyond, just to see, you know, what happens. And so it's interesting sometimes, you know, with ultra pasteurized milk, I do say in the book, the recipes, that it's okay if you use it, if that's all you can find. But because it's already been heated to a higher temperature and then you put it in the Instant Pot, it also happens with lactose-free milk sometimes. The curd will turn a little bit tan, like the sugars have caramelized or something, you know.
Well, that's
it doesn't change the flavor. Yeah, so it's okay, but, you know, just aesthetically. So,
but structurally, the proteins, it doesn't have a different texture.
No, interestingly not. Yeah, it was still like regular. If you close your eyes, it would be just like a regular cheese. It wasn't my preference, just because it looked weird, you know. So I would say if you can find milk that's just lightly pasteurized, or there's a great website that you can go on called localharvest.org. You put in your zip code and then it'll show you like raw goat's milk, or if you want to get cow's milk from a farm, or experiment with sheep's milk.
And A2 milk, have you used that? A2 milk? A2 milk?
Exactly. Yes, I have. And as long as it's not ultra pasteurized, I like to use it. And then our mutual friends, Mike and Linda at Terra Pharma, they actually raise cows with A2 milk. So it's really great when I can get their milk. Here in Oregon, we can buy it from farms. As you know, Kirsten, we can't get it at the grocery store, but in Washington, you guys can get raw milk at the grocery store, and California. So I don't know Alaska, because I was looking to see where people are joining us from, but you are able to access that milk a lot more easily than we can. But either way, it works with the pasteurized, the raw. Just try to stay away from the ultra pasteurized, although you can use it for some. Definitely not for things that will require rennet. So like if you really want to make mozzarella or string cheese or something like that, I would stay away from that milk. So because
can we get the website again for the raw milk?
Oh, yeah.
And I'll type it in.
Localharvest.org.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's great because it will show you not only like farm sources, but co-ops, little family fruit stands, things like that, where they might have, you know, even if you're looking for eggs or anything like that. It's just more like direct from the source type of food. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up here. I'm going to unplug it so I don't have an accident. Let's see here. So I'll need 2 little towels, one that fell. So this will be nice and hot, so be careful as you take this out. You can see my milk, and let me show you the trivet that it comes with. This is what I mean about the little wrap. And now there's just a cup of hot milk in there and a perfectly clean pot. Can you imagine that, Kirsten, from making like a big cheese that goes to this high temp? Okay, so now can you all see the floating little herbs in there? There they are. And I like to put them in whole sprigs if you have them, just because it's so much easier to take them out. But if you wanted to do like a little tea bag tied with twine, some kind of bouquet garni type of thing where it allows you to take out, you know, like more like chopped herbs out easily, you can do it that way, or you can strain it as well. So a couple of ways to do it. Put that aside. And now this is just hot milk. And this is the great thing about this whole making cheese in the Instant Pot, is that most of the time I'm not going to ask you to use a thermometer. I just know that the presets of the pot are going to go to the temperature that you need. So case in point here, we're not even going to bother with testing that out. So we're putting in that buttermilk. Remember, it's for tangy flavor. It's going to be like a cultured cheese, but also for that acidity that starts to coagulate our milk and turn it into curds and whey. Just stir it gently. Whenever you're making cheese, as you know, Kirsten, you have to be gentle with the curd as it's trying to form, so you don't, interfere with the curd forming. So you'll see a little bit already happen, but remember, we haven't put in our lemon juice. And this amount
that little bit is just the acidity from that buttermilk.
That's yep. Right. From the buttermilk being tangy. All right. We put in our 1/4 cup lemon juice. That's almost all of it. There's one pit in there that I want to make sure doesn't go in. So if I don't need the rest, I won't put in the rest. Can you see?
We can.
Oh, good. So even a little bit more forming. So now what we're doing by allowing that both buttermilk and lemon juice to go throughout the entire pot of milk while slowly moving it around is we're not only making sure that the milk is acidified evenly, but we're also allowing that curd to cook a little bit so that it's counterintuitive because it's floating in whey, but it actually releases whey as it sits in the hot liquid. So the more you leave it in here, the drier and firmer your cheese would become. So when you know that, it's really great because now you know, oh, take it out immediately. I'm going to have a super tender, luscious ricotta, or let it sit for a few minutes and it's going to be a wheel that I can form, or let it sit for half an hour and then take it out. It's going to be too dry, not pleasant. So be careful. So for this recipe, I think I say let it sit there 10 minutes or so. But you also can just kind of judge it, because what you might have done is, you know, you let it depressurize and the phone rang, or you got on your email and you know that you let the milk sit there for a really long time and it's really, really hot by the time you get to it. So you might see that it has just like a really nice curd and you feel it. You want to make sure that when you pinch it, it doesn't fall right through your fingers like yogurt would, and maybe even indents a little bit when you push on it. So to me, that's pretty good. I don't need to let that sit much longer. I think I'm just going to take it out. So remember this, it doesn't, you don't see lavender anywhere, but there's a little bit of a scent of lavender because essentially I've made lavender milk tea by infusing the milk all that time with the sprig of lavender. So, okay, back to this. Any questions, Kirsten?
I think you are.
Okay. I'm so used to like being a one-woman show that I just like ask the questions, answer the questions, make the cheese. Okay. But today I have help, which is awesome because sometimes it's really difficult to read the questions on there while I make things. Okay, so we talked about the ingredients. You're all clear on what we've used here. Whole milk, lemon juice, buttermilk. That combination of acids gives us not only flavor, but that coagulation action that we need to separate the curds from the whey. Now here, what I've set up is a good quality cheesecloth. You see that this isn't the gauzy, huge whole stuff that you buy in the grocery store. In a pinch, you can use that. I don't like it because A, it's disposable, but also you need like 6 to 8 layers of that to really be able to capture all of your fine curd. You want to get the biggest yield, right? So especially if you went to a farm and paid, you know, $14 for a half gallon of raw milk, you want it all. So get good quality cheesecloth, but you can also get like a lint-free tea towel, boil it, or just buy it for this purpose, or
so we do have a question, is where should we buy cheesecloths? I know that I buy it online with the name butter muslin.
Yeah, it can be called butter muslin. It can, or it can be 90 thread count or 120 thread count, kind of like you would buy sheets, you know, cheesecloth. And I sell it at my website, urbancheesecraft.com. But now, when I started in 2009, it was really difficult to find all this stuff. But now you can pretty much, if you are lucky enough to have like any type of homesteading, beer brewing type of supply store near you. Of course, everybody's buying things online right now, but yeah, just Google butter muslin and it's going to be super easy to find. But I was just gonna
how long can whey be kept?
How about, can we batch questions for kind of like what I'm doing at the time? Because we're going to get to that as soon as we drain this. I just want to make sure that this doesn't get too dry and overcooked for us. Okay, so cheesecloth, colander, heat resistant bowl. And then we're going to pour the whole thing in. And you can do this in a sink if you weren't going to keep your whey. Of course, you just waste it down the drain, but I recommend you don't do that because there's a lot that you can do with it. One of the easiest way to use a lot of it is to boil potatoes in it. And then it's going to make like a potato salad or anything like mashed potatoes that you're going to then use the potatoes for. Creamy. It's already going to have that kind of sour cream flavor built in. And you may not think it's worth it, but look at how much whey there is. So much liquid. And I'll show you. We don't want that, we don't want this bundle resting in this way. You can see it there. So what I'm going to do now is switch this over to my Instant Pot container. There. And we can salt this. Let's talk about salt a little bit before we go into whey. So you will see the term cheese salt used in my recipes and in other places. And it really is just a flake salt. Really light and fluffy, dissolves very easily. It's not as heavy as a sea salt or a table salt. And when we call it cheese salt, it's because it's a shorthand to know that it doesn't contain iodine or any anti-caking agents. But those qualities become more important when you're going to be aging cheeses. For these types of fast cheeses, you can use a sea salt, any kind of salt, real salt that you want to grind, or if you want to grind something yourself that you have in a grinder. And we're not using it for any preservation or safety necessarily at this level of cheese making. We're just using the salt for flavor. There's a tiny bit more liquid that comes out as you stir this because salt is always going to draw out moisture. Let me see if we see any dripping. Yeah, a little bit. But it really is just for flavor. And I say that because if you are in a low salt diet, or if you want to make this for your grandma who can't have salt, you can completely lower it to none if you want, and then just flavor it with like a smoky paprika and a lot of herbs, some roasted garlic. You can get creative with it. Or if the amounts of salt that I said in the recipe aren't high enough for you, feel free to add more. I'm a big believer in eating a good salt and eating it to what you feel your body needs. Your body will tell you if it's craving salty, have it. So we don't realize just how much cheese is salted, you know, that we buy in the store, because we don't see that. We don't see them add it. But once you start making your cheese, you realize, oh, cheese is actually pretty salted. So there goes the last bit of that whey. And so you can see there, it looks a little milky, the whey. If you were to taste it, it will absolutely taste sweet and milky. Depending on if you use an apple cider vinegar, or lemon juice, lime juice, buttermilk, it will have a faint flavor of those things for sure as well. So when you taste it, so for example, this one, there's lemon and there's buttermilk. The whey would be totally fine and neutral to use for things like smoothies, and like I said, boiling potatoes and things like that. And because it's so much of it, if you don't think you're going to go through all of it, you can definitely freeze it. If you put it in jars, just make sure, especially if they're glass jars, to leave at least an inch of head space for expansion, because I've definitely broken jars in the freezer trying to push it. Usually what I tend to do is let it cool, because I have a freezer full of whey. And if this were to be empty, I just put it right back in the container. And not only does this expand and it's fine in the freezer, but since that curd, the fat, the proteins are out, there's space in there now. So it will be able to expand safely. But I was just going to say that if your whey is not, you know, the lemon juice buttermilk whey, but rather it's like maybe you did black pepper infusion and you used an apple cider vinegar and it's a bit more of a savory whey, then maybe you want to make a curry or a stew, some kind of soup with that. And so like if you were to make like a cheddar broccoli soup and use this instead of a broth, that will work really well. So clearly I'm into whey. I'm writing a book about it. So I love just thinking, oh, if you would normally have, you know, this other liquid in there, would it work with this whey? And would it add something? Would we have to supplement it? Maybe add like a splash of cream just to make up for how low fat it is now. I do want to just say the one thing is that there's a lot of lactose in there. So if you can barely digest cheese, I would say maybe don't get so into whey. Okay. Did I answer the whey questions now, Kirsten? And the salt?
Just how long can it be kept? So freezing is what?
Oh gosh. I mean, I have whey.
Definitely.
Yeah, pretty much. Just, you know, yeah. I
mean, I feel like back in the day when I did this a lot, I feel like because it's so acidic, like in the fridge, especially if the jar isn't being opened, you've got months.
You do. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So all I'm doing is very gently squeezing the last bit of the whey out of there. So it's ready. As soon as you saw me salt it, that's when it's ready to go. And if all you did was just put it in a bowl and added a bunch of herbs, you know, dig in with crackers, you're ready to go. Or you can shape it because it's been heated to that high temperature, and because it's really warm right now, it would very easily, as it cools, keep the shape of just this bundle if all you want to do is let it cool in this, and you'll have this beautiful little rustic loaf of cheese. Or you can shape it in ramekins, or I have a nice form here that I'm going to put it in. But before I do that, let me just show you that this, if you really wanted to make it super herby or add, you know, spicy red pepper flakes or black pepper, right here when I was adding the salt is exactly when you would mix that in. And so then you'll have those flavors throughout, the colors, etc., the clue of what you're eating throughout, rather than my surprise lavender flavor that's kind of hidden because
I was going to say lavender pepper, not lavender chili, right?
Oh my gosh, so good. Yes. And then drizzle it with a little honey. Yum. Okay. So you can do it with your hands. I'm going to do that. It's faster. Here you go. So here's a cheese form. You absolutely don't need this kind of cheese form for this type of cheese because those holes are really meant for draining out a lot of whey. And you saw that we already did that in the cheesecloth. But what I like about it is that it's made to be like a little basket, so it'll give you the imprint. And it's just a nice way to shape cheese. But like I said, you can use any little ramekin or form that you have. This is pretty warm, but you do want it to be hot, because then that's when it'll kind of fuse into its shape and keep it. So if you wanted to do, and I think I talk about this in the book, I might show maybe one of the pictures. Yeah, one picture on the cover of a slice of cheese. What I did there was filled only half of the curd, then did a layer of herbs, and then filled the second half. Exactly. Yep. And then when you slice your wedge, you have that little line of deliciousness running through it. This one is just infused. No visual clues, but it should keep its shape right now if I pop it out, even though you would normally let this cool so that it would really be sliceable. But let me show you. Ta-da! Okay. It looks like the one that you posted on your Instagram for me, Kirsten.
I know. I must have known. It's like we planned it, but didn't.
I know. So that's that one. And then I didn't use all of it. So there's still like not another wheel, but like another half wheel in here. So if you wanted to save that one to stuff some peppers, or, you know, sprinkle in a lasagna, or something like that, there's plenty of cheese to go around for sure. And well, I guess I brought that up a little bit earlier, but when you let this cool and then you want to decorate the outside to make it look like, let me see, I don't think the cover shows any of them, but you'll see there's a queso blanco inside of the book where I did smoked paprika all around. And so you can either roll the wheel very gently and herbs or spices, or you can just sift it and sprinkle it all around. And then it's really neat because when you slice it, you have that bright outside with a really nice white inside of the wheel. So that is it. We made cheese pretty much live because I just pushed cook, you know, right before we started. So it's really pretty easy.
So easy. Yeah, so we do have a couple of questions. How do you store that bit of extra, and how long is it good for?
All of these fresh cheeses are going to be good for 7-10 days. Like Kirsten was saying, if you don't open them a lot, or if you're not dipping in a lot with like a spoon and licking it.
Who does that?
Yeah. Then you just put it in a little glass, you know, leftovers container. Any kind of, however you would keep your leftovers in your fridge, you just put it in there.
Nice.
Mason jar, that's what you have. You guys.
I'm gonna let you answer this question. Can the whey be used for fermenting vegetables?
You're gonna let me answer that?
I mean, I can answer it if you want, but.
Okay, well, let me give my version, because Kirsten's mostly taught me this because, what we didn't share, Kirsten, is that my first love was fermenting veggies, and you first fermented milk before you went on to vegetables. So it's funny, we flipped and
we flipped, yeah.
So because I was fermenting veggies, and because I read that, oh, you should add a little bit of whey as a starter, I did it. And it was gross every single time. And I was like, you know, I was a beginner, so I thought I was doing something wrong. It wasn't until
Well, it's out there everywhere.
Everywhere.
What way in your ferments, but.
Yeah. And I would say, like, you know, if you get away with it and it's not disgusting and slimy and your veggies.
Get away? Was that on?
Yeah, you get away with it. Yeah, we have to brainstorm the title of my new book, okay? You know, you'll be very lucky, but once I started just doing salt and water for those pickles, there was zero need for the whey. So then, you know, years later, I meet Kirsten and I'm researching this whey book that I'm writing now. And Kirsten, now you do the last bit of debunking there so that you're the expert.
So, yeah, so everybody loves to say use whey because it's got probiotics in it. Now, away from yogurt or something that hasn't been heated will have probiotics in it. Claudia's weighed just now at 180. Even the culture that she added is probably dead and gone. And so you're really just adding a milky water. You're not really adding the probiotics to get that vegetable fermentation going. And then the last little piece to that is lactobacillus is what is in the whey, yes, but it's different members of the family that are there to ferment milk, not vegetables. So I don't love it.
We don't recommend it. And in that next book, she and I are going to cause a ruckus with it. We'll get angry letters.
Exactly. Somebody has a comment. I never thought I could make homemade cheese, but Claudia's book changed my mind. I'm entirely in love with the mascarpone for my tiramisu. And
is that Leila?
Delicious. I will never get store-bought mascarpone again. Thank you, Claudia. Yay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That one was one that blew my mind because if you get a good mascarpone, it's like $8 for a tiny little 4-ounce, like hummus style container. And it's so easy to make. And it's lemon juice or some kind of acid and cream. And
yum. And
delicious.
Yum. Yeah. So we have a question from Liz who says, hi, what is a fun holiday cheese idea from the book?
Ooh.
There are so many things that can be decorated so beautifully.
Definitely.
What would you do?
Yeah, so since people saw this one thing that I love doing during the holidays, Liz, for any cheese, but I'll just demonstrate on this one, is sprinkle a bunch of sugar on there and then brulee it. So then you'll have the crackly top of sugar, sort of like if you would, normally put like a compote of fruit or a drizzle of honey or some kind of like sweet jam. But this goes a little bit further with the brulee. And if you want more of a large flat surface, you can definitely slice it into slabs and then brulee different slabs and things like that. That's a good one. Other than that, I would say just make a really delicious cranberry cherry compote. And I think the jewel colors along with the cheese, pretty much any cheese of your choice that you like will be really delicious and festive.
And there's a little, I'm trying to find the picture quickly, but I can't. These little guys. I mean, they feel
cannoli.
Holiday-ish.
Oh my God, I love cannoli so much. If you can find some of the little shells, or if you're a good baker, oh my gosh, those would be incredibly festive. I think we used a combination of ricotta and mascarpone for that one. The recipe for cannoli is not in the book, I just want to say, but the cheeses are in there. And then all of those pictures are just serving suggestions, but yeah, definitely. And then my friend Leila mentioned tiramisu. So if you really want to learn how to make an amazing dessert that's not that hard to make yourself a ton of mascarpone and make a tiramisu for the first time this holiday season.
Yes, I'm there. Our next question goes back to just more practicality, but 2% versus whole milk. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so whole milk fat is always going to give you tender lusciousness, and when we're making cheese, that's what we're after. Unless the only time I would say it's okay to use low fat is paneer, because essentially you're going to get a drier, firmer cheese, and with paneer that's okay, and it even fries better, it's easier. And string cheese is also one where even if you get cream top milk from a farm, I would say skim some of the cream off, put it in your coffee, enjoy it. But then use that lower fat milk to make the string cheese. And what it does is gives you better strings, again, because of that dryness. But for mozzarella, for burrata, for a cheese like this, for ricotta, I would say go for the fat, because not only are you going to get more cheese, you're going to get a larger yield, because fat and protein, that's what cheese is made of. It's just going to taste better and I think be more worth your effort. Eat a little less of it if you're concerned, but eat the good stuff.
Amen. So we don't have a whole lot of time yet left, but I would love you to just talk a little bit about dairy-free recipes, because I do know the book
Right.
has some dairy-free recipes, and I know a lot of
Yeah.
folks are interested in that.
Yes, thank you for remembering that, because I got to include 7 dairy-free recipes in the book. And I'm really glad about that, not only because I make, dairy-free
And
kit.
I want to show the
Yes.
beautiful picture.
Yes, and look at this sauce. I love this sauce. But because, people have mixed homes, as you know, Kirsten, my partner doesn't eat dairy. And so it was fun to come up with some cheeses that he could eat. But I also was just kind of like, what features does the Instant Pot have? What does it do well? And it works really well with like root vegetables, something that might take a little bit longer to cook on the stove or in the oven. And also grains. So in my book, 1 Hour Dairy-Free Cheese, it's totally grain-free. It's very allergy-friendly, so I didn't get to play with those things there. But then in the Instant Pot, I use oats, I use rice, I use potatoes, carrots for all those dairy-free cheeses. And my basic approach was just exactly how I approach all my dairy-free cheese recipes, is just make a good food, like a good sauce, good soup, good creamy thing, and then tweak the texture so that it gives you that mouthfeel and lusciousness of like a Alfredo sauce or nacho sauce or something like that.
That is the pro tip. Make a good sauce and tweak it.
Sauce and tweak it. And then I got to play with coconut milk yogurt, which you helped me about or with. I also, saw that people add maple syrup all the time, and I wondered if that was really necessary. And I think, again, the logic with this one is, well, the microbes need to eat sugar, so let's add it. But for me, it turns out coconut milk was sweet enough. And so the recipe for coconut milk yogurt is in here, and it's essentially the same as what a dairy recipe would be. You just have to use certain microbes if you're not going to be adding actual, dairy yogurt to it. So I use, you have a couple of options. You can use store-bought starter, just, like a cultured yogurt, probiotic, little capsules that are vegan if you want to keep it strictly dairy-free. Or you can buy freeze-dried cultures also that are dairy-free. And once you make one batch, just like with regular cow's milk yogurt or goat's milk yogurt, you use a little bit of that yogurt to culture your next batch. So,
well, I will let you answer the last question here while I also invite Megna from Book Larder to come back on. But it's is it possible to cut the recipes in halves or quarters?
You can cut them in half because, I mentioned that the recipes were made for a 6-quart pot, but, they don't get much smaller than 3 quarts. So that's as far as you can go, really, if you're using an Instant Pot book. If you were going to just make a simple cheese like ricotta or paneer on the stovetop, you can check out my book, 1 Hour Cheese. You can turn it into 15-minute cheese by just making a quarter batch. And then, yeah, very easy to cut down those recipes.
Nice. Wonderful. So I think we're there. And
awesome. Thank you so much, Kirsten. And thanks everybody for showing up. It was fun to make cheese in my office.
Yeah. I when you said, well, you'll want to do this at your sink, my mind, my little snarky was, no, not at your desk over your keyboard.
Yeah, no, I'm away from my keyboard, and I have my handy dandy little holder, but yeah, accidents could happen. And don't be afraid of yellow color, by the way. You can make like an electrolyte lemonade type of thing with it too, like a Whey-terade.
Oh.
I love that. Claudia and Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm so much more excited to flip through Instant Pot cheese. Who knew? I mean, I guess we knew we could do so much with the Instant Pot, but this is just such a great guide. So thank you for joining us and walking us through one of your recipes, walking us through the book. Thank you, everybody who attended tonight. If you are interested in purchasing this book, you can check out our website, booklarder.com. It is available there, and like I mentioned, we can ship nationwide. So if you or someone you know wants to learn to make their own cheese, it's a great one to have on your holiday gift radar. The talk, tonight's talk will also be posted on our YouTube channel within 48 hours. So if you know someone who is excited about tuning in tonight but maybe couldn't make it, feel free to share that link with them. We will send that around in a Zoom post-event email as well. But that's all that we have for you tonight. Thanks again, Kirsten and Claudia. We'll see you on the flip side, and have a good night.
Oh, thanks
Everybody. Good night.
Bye, everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Thank you.